Freud too. Okay, last time we just we did an introduction to Freud. This time we're going to go more into Freud's theories. We're going to talk about his defense mechanisms, and we're also going to talk about his stages of development. But where we left off before, the id, the ego, and the superego. The id wants something, ego's job is to go out there and get it, and the superego saying, no, you can't do it. Okay? I mean, think about it. I mean, you did something, you knew it was wrong, but you did it anyway. I've done that before, okay, you'll say it. And then later on, you should not have done that. Bad person, okay? Think about the last time you did something. And that's where people justify. Okay, you need to work, so in other words, the ego creates what Freud called defense mechanisms in order to work out that conflict. You did something, you knew it was wrong, but you did it anyway. Well, first you can do a denial. Denial's not, no, I didn't do it, lying to yourself or refusing to accept reality. I'll say substance abuse counselors do it more than anybody else. I'm not drunk, I just had a six-pack, right? Or I can hit it and quit it. I quit it, no problem, okay? Denial, once a person gets through the denial, that's the only time treatment can become effective. So denial, refusing to accept reality or lying to yourself. Another defense mechanism is intellectualization, removing oneself emotionally from the situation. It's nothing personal. To a certain extent, surgeons have to do that to get through their work. Okay, a lot of states have laws where if you're a surgeon, you can't perform surgery on a family member or a close friend because you're not able to intellectualize. Okay, remove yourself emotionally and to perform that successfully. Or if you teach in a lot of school districts, especially elementary school, you can't have your kid in your classroom because once again, it's difficult to remove one and that could harm the class dynamics to a certain extent. But intellectualization, removing oneself emotionally from a situation. You ever hear somebody talking about themselves in third person? Okay, well, she versus me. Okay, same thing. That's kind of intellectualizing. Next defense mechanism would be projection. Projection. You see, it's a lot of family reunions. You ever know those families? Everybody's double on one person, and you're the strongest person in the family. Why don't you get your life together? Well, you tell me to get my life together. You've been in 3 marriages in the past 2 years. You tell me to get my life together. Okay, oh, she doesn't love him. She just wants it for his money. Well, that's what you're thinking. In other words, projecting. In other words, putting your personal agenda onto someone else. Okay, next one would be displacement. Displacement is a type of emotional passing the buck. I mean, you go to work, you had a bad day at work, maybe your boss yelled at you in front of a bunch of people. You don't yell at your boss, but when you get home, what do? Be honest, okay? So in other words, you don't take it out, that anger or aggression on someone other than. Okay, it's a lot of times people are rude, it's nothing personal, you just so happen to be there and they're lashing out at something happened to them earlier or something happened in their lives, okay? They don't like their jobs, they're in a dating relationship, and they lash out at you as opposed to the situation. So it'd be displacement, taking one's hostility out on someone other than who put it on. In theory, that's why people go jogging, okay, or go to the gym when you get in a bad mood. And that comes in the next defense mechanism, sublimation, using that negative energy and doing something positive with it. So you had a bad day at the gym. So in other words, type of displacement. Okay, you go have a bad day at work and you go to the gym, just work out hard, or go there, run that extra mile at that 5-minute level, and later on you kind of burn the energy off. That's something, in other words, taking the energy. Okay, you like cutting people, seeing blood, so you become a surgeon. Okay, you're doing something positive with that negative urge. Okay, you like knocking people down, so you become a football player. Same thing, the negative urge to do something positive. Linebackers, I always think about linebackers. Imagine what they would do if it wasn't for football. Okay, or some of these bouncers. I've seen bouncers sit there and they just can't wait to choke somebody out or something, and they're getting paid for it. So sublimation, taking a negative urge and doing something positive with it. Rationalization. I would say commission salespeople know as much about rationalization than any psychologist. Okay, making excuses, any excuse to do. Oh, baby, I was drunk. I didn't mean to do it. Okay, rationalization. That's what salespeople are all about. They get you to rationalize, help you purchase that product. Okay, wouldn't you really rather have a Buick? Or little slogans like that help you rationalize any excuse to do it. Rationalization, making excuses, or justifying one's decision to a certain extent. Regression. Regression comes from the Latin verb regressar, go back. Okay, go backwards. Okay, backwards. Okay, to a certain extent, to return. Okay, so regression, going back in time. Regressive therapy, that word seems to work, sometimes works, or is important to work really well in certain types of therapy where a person have a trauma or something, and you go back to that situation, or using a technique that worked as a child, as an adult. Tantrums. I mean, a lot of times, tantrums is primarily a 4-year-old techniques, but I see couples, they break stuff and they get arguments. Yeah, in other words, they're regressing back to that childhood using that particular techniques of regression, going back. Repression, motivate for big forgetting, pushing something out of your memory. Okay, pushing something out of your memory. Okay, repress memories. That was a really big issue in the 1970s, 1980s. We go back to talk about memory. We'll look at that a little bit more in detail. Repressed memories. I forgot. People exposed to trauma. If you were in a really bad car accident, a really bad experience, you might remember just before the accident and wake up in the hospital, but you might not remember what happened during that time. That would be where your memory was repressed for your, and what Freud says, for your own psychological survival. Next one would be reaction formation. Reaction formation, hypocrites. I would say that was one the hypocrites use, going the opposite of what you really feel or believe. Like the gay basher. I think I might be gay, but I said, I'm gonna go out here and beat this sissy up and make me feel more like a man. Okay, Anita Bryant was a good example of that. She went on a crusade, this is in the 1980s or so, went on a crusade against homosexuality and the whole, someone really, from talking about in terms of reaction formation, she's actually gay herself, and one way to hide that would be to go out on a crusade against it. Okay, or the good deacon who wants to get rid of the single mom because she's a bad influence on all the women, all the young girls in the choir, and she, all over Korea, so we get rid of her from the church, and he's sleeping half the women in the choir. In other words, going overboard, the opposite of what you truly are. All right, there's one, who was it, Daryl Bim, and his research found that newly converts to religion tend to be stronger believers than people who've always been there for a long time. Newly converts to religion tend to be stronger believers than someone who's been there throughout their lives. Okay, well, that'll be a type of reaction formation, going emotionally overboard, the opposite. Next section, we're talking about Freud's theory on development.